Hello everyone, I'm really glad to be here with you today at the International Forum on Urbanism in Lisbon. I am excited to share my talk from ancient metropolis to IT cities, exploring place attachment in the age of attention economy. This research builds on my master's thesis at University College London under the guidance of Professor Provides NG. So, shall I start? Let's begin with a simple question. What is the currency of our age? Not so long ago, it was gold or perhaps land. Today, it's something far more elusive time and attention. In the attention economy, these have been the functional currencies of social life, shaping our friendships, our sense of self, and even how we connect with each other. Social media thrives on novelty and unpredictability, pulling us away from the grounded and real world experiences that philosophers like Heidegger believed were essential for true identity. Now, our attention is fragmented. We chase likes and notification, trading genuine attachment for fleeting digital validation. Silicon Valley has turned our needs for validation and quick gratification into a business model, one that left society more anxious, more addicted, and ironically more disconnected. Consider this one research. In just 4 years, the percentage of teenagers spending more than 5 hours a day on social media nearly doubled, from 11% to 20%. So, is pleasure really happiness? Let's see what Ruth Van Haven talked about in The Greater Happiness in his research. Both tables highlight the difference in external and internal qualities as well as how enduring life satisfaction is much better than fleeting pleasure, in eventually concluding that the fact that public happiness can be raised does not mean that happiness should be raised. Also, Adolf Huxley, in his book Brave New World, pictured a dystopian vision, reminded us that mass and superficial happiness is often just an escape from reality, not a path to genuine fulfillment. But how did we get here? To understand the root cause of our current predicament, we must look back, far back, to the hierarchy of senses in Western culture. However, in ancient civilization, traditional wisdom wasn't just visual, it was felt in the body, not just dominated by eye. For the Greeks, vision was the noblest sense. Plato called it humanity's greatest gift. Renaissance saw senses in hierarchy, vision at the top, touch at the base, reflecting a cosmic order. But things changed dramatically with invention of perspective art that made the eye and eventually the individual viewer the center of reality. The viewers was now at the heart of the story. That's where everything shifted to I-ness and communal nature of our living shifted to personal. Fast forward to 1988, we started noticing the rise of what we called oculocentrism, from television to newspapers to advertising to commerce. Society became obsessed with vision, a cancerous growth. This shift was seen not just in art but architecture also. However, architecture has fundamentally explored this essence of human existence within the dimension of space and time. Natural material express their age, the story of their origin. It allowed our vision to penetrate into the surface and enabled us to become convinced of veracity of matter. Like in the East, mind and ear were the dominant sense. Since spirituality and nature of space was much more important to attain higher experience. This oculocentric paradigm in urban life, where building became objects to be seen, not spaces to be experienced. The tactile, haptic qualities that once grounded us in place were pushed aside. The I-ness of architecture increased, and architecture started shifting to celebrity cultures. Then, where even architects like Le Corbusier talked about, sorry if I quote, I exist in life only if I can see. Even architect like Adolf Loos talked about ornament as a crime. Instead of being communal, the idea of originality floated in architecture, totally losing context, and buildings became devoid of space and place. As conservationist Roger Scruton observed in Paris, when a place feels compatible, not difficult to navigate, it lifts the burden on our direct attention. In these spaces, our mind is clear, our thoughts settle, and we find room to reflect. Fast forward to today's attention economy. The smartphone has become our modern hypodermic needle, constantly injecting us with digital dopamine. Images are converted into endless commodities. Eye's dominance and suppression of other senses tends to push us into detachment and isolation. Surprisingly, in one of the interviews, Steve Jobs once admitted that he never allowed his kids to use the iPad. The world's biggest technocrats are also the biggest technophobes in private, recognizing the psychological implication of these devices. So, what are we trying to explore in this thesis? How do attention economy dynamics influence the relationship between urban design, place attachment, and self identity? What design principles can mitigate the existential detachment fostered by oculocentric idea-driven cities? Let's first dive into why social media is engineered for attention and dopamine. Cognitive psychology tells us that there are two types of attention: voluntary attention, where focus is requires effort, like when you're studying for an exam, and involuntary attention is when your focus is effortless, like reaching out for a burger. And that's where Silicon Valley found the weakest point of human mind. Social media thrives on this involuntary attention, bombarding us with novelty and unpredictability. It becomes an easy escape from life's challenges, and while also giving us the social connection we naturally crave. But here's the catch: attention is a finite resource, and dopamine, the so called happy hormone, can be a double edged sword. When pleasure becomes excessive and uncontrollable, it leads not to happiness but to imbalance and ultimately pain. This constant supply of visual attention fosters a fragmented relationship between attention and attachment. When we focus too much on our screen, we feel less connected to people and real world. Eventually, there is attentional fatigue caused, as seen on the graph. Direct, Directed attention, when you study hard, there's focus, there's increase, and after, since the attention is finite, there's a drop. When there's a drop, there's a chance to restoring that attention. Psychologists and neuroscience have found that spending time in environments which are conducive and have soft fascination, as in have ease of engagement, are coherent and congruent environment, landscapes, places which are not out of place, easy to navigate, are some ways a role can come up in avoiding the detachment and isolation this platform has created. Even neuroscience also talked about how critical it is to have intimate relationship between memory and sense of place. If you don't relate to a place, the memory is not attached. Hence, one gets devoid and out of place of that particular location. Marwa Al-Subuni talked about this beautifully in her book, The Battle of Home. She is an architect in homes. She talks about the issue, which documents the extent to which this new way of building in concrete shanties on the edge of the city and knocking down all the intimate alleyways, how that has actually contributed to the antagonism of the communities towards each other and fueled civil war, and of course given people no sense of where they belong. So earlier there were French churches and mosques were existing together since architecture was congruent and blended well. But after building the concrete shanties, the city's landscape became like teeth. So her thesis is that social cohesion that existed was lost due to lack of place attachment and sense of place. Hence, somewhere proving how Western technological influences on the East is somewhere the inferiority complex of ours, where we identify with the West as the benchmark when our cities were enough, hence eventually losing place attachment. Ancient Romans believed each person had a guardian spirit or a genius that gave life to both people and places and shaped their essence, leading to strong physical and emotional ties to the land. Same comes with material and time. In current glass, steel, and concrete, there's no veracity of matter. The vision doesn't penetrate. There's no sense of time and depth to building. So so it creates some distance between humans and building. The flatness and material ambiguity of modern construction mirror our collective avoidance of confronting the passage of time and the inevitability of aging and death. So the two cities of focus for our research was Varanasi and Bangalore. Varanasi was the ancient city and Bangalore was the IT hub of India. The reason we took these two cities was because Bangalore had same characteristic as Varanasi. It had a sense of identity. But eventually with IT revolution and influence of Silicon Valley, it changed. Bangalore, which was known as the Garden and Lake City of India, had character, not same as the picturesque ghats of Varanasi, but in form of environmental landscape. It was known for its balance of built and unbuilt, where nature was infused into the city. But post the IT shift, there was fast-paced growth by reclaiming land on lakes, which converted these water bodies to concrete towers, stripping its people from their own breathable spaces. Earlier, apart from its environmental character, the architecture too had a glamour. But post the great dream of Silicon Valley left its architecture of any identity. The billboards gave more aesthetic and design to the building than the building itself. The land reclamation disrupted the natural order. Water movement led to flooding. This great vision of copying was highly criticized on places like social media. Whereas the city of lakes, Varanasi, which was also known as the oldest city, where years were gone, hasn't seen any dramatic foreign influence. Every corner has a meaning. The situated events from life to death on ghats is a sensory overload for its inhabitants, keeping them engaged. The ghats, the alleyways, contributed the visual imagery and developed a natural archetype, not giving feeling of displacement or any forceful imposed order. However, there are minute tweaks affecting its natural order. This random erasure of fabric is barely affecting the skyline. That's the strength of culturally infused build, where architecture and places are created out of meaning and depth, and not through plasticity. Varanasi's fabric is untouched by foreign influences. It is very dense. It has veracity of matter. It has kept its character as opposed to Bangalore, which was influenced by the West. So, what are we trying to analyze in this research using these two cities? By using data-driven approach uh, and strategic use of social media, our research foreground, we'll do image scraping, surveys, use Instagram chatbots to understand the cultural biases people have of these two cities, using methods like social media text, including threads and posts from city-specific forums. Look at responses using Likert scales, polls, quizzes, sliders, having Q&A session to crowdsource real-time reaction to these urban spaces. So the final intention is to understand and quantify dopamine generating urbanism via social media platform, and eventually postulate few design principles and ideas to foster dopaminergic urbanism for attention deficit society. Thank you.